Great to be catching up with the CEO of Woolproducers Australia, Joe Hall. How are you going, Joe?
I'm well, thanks, Ricky. How are you?
Wonderful, thanks. But it's a nervous time, isn't it, when it comes to our wool producers with foot and mouth disease. Now, let's be clear about this one. First of all, there is no cases of foot and mouth disease here in Australia amongst any of our livestock. Is that right?
Ricky, that's a really good point. There is no foot and mouth disease in Australia. We remain free, as we have done for 130 years. We're currently in the preparedness phase, which we have been for many decades. Yes, preparedness measures are currently heightened, but we are definitely still in the preparedness phase.
And I think that's important just to touch base on, simply because we've seen in the cattle and the sheep markets that there's been a big drop-off in price, which markets are going to do what they're going to do. Wool's trade is in a bit of a recess at the moment, but the market will do, like I say, what it's going to do. But there does seem to be this little bit of panic amongst producers about what might happen.
We're certainly hearing that panic, and I understand that. I'm a producer myself. However, it's really important to know that, it is currently business as usual, but taking into account that there are a number of pre- and at-border biosecurity measures that the federal government have implemented to combat the increased risk of foot and mouth disease since it's been found in Indonesia and more recently closer in Bali.
Yeah, and now I guess those that are not wool producers might not realise at first blush that the exporting of wool comes out largely in a greasy format, and that's where foot and mouth exposure is. It's not just about meat product, it's also a concern for wool producers.
It certainly is. So currently the way that the exports work is that there is an animal health certificate that for exports, and that certificate currently says FMD free. So obviously if there was an incursion, our trading status would change on that basis alone, but we would be shut out of market along with those other affected commodity products for a number of months. It could take longer. It would depend on the size of the outbreak. The goal of Australia's policy around foot and mouth disease is to stamp out or eradicate it. So that will have an impact on when we return to trade, because we would have to prove proof of freedom going forward.
Yeah, and again, to reinforce, that's not a situation we're in at the moment. It's not detected. We're still FMD free in Australia. But what about China? They are not FMD free themselves. How does that functionally work, in the sense that we would send a lot of ours wool over for processing in China, but why would that still affect our ability to send to them for processing?
Because our health declarations pertain to our health declaration. It doesn't matter what the importing countries have or don't have. It's a statement that we make, and when we can no longer make that statement, we have to renegotiate those trading protocols.
Yeah, okay. So, it's given that so much processing happening over there, that it doesn't matter that they're not FMD free. It's certainly going to be a major problem for us if we can't export that to them either.
Yes, it will be, and it will be a problem for the global supply chain, given that we produce so much wool in a greasy form, particularly in that apparel, finer micron end. We are the largest supplier of that, so it would have global impacts for the wool trade if we were to get foot and mouth disease.
Now, just lastly, the Ag Ministers a couple of Wednesdays ago got together on a video conference. The New South Wales Minister took forward this policy that we needed to copy Victoria's electronic tracing system, so that the whole nation had that traceability for something on a biosecurity. But there are other fronts as well. Generally, what is Wool Producer Australia's policy about that electronic tracing process?
So our policy is pretty clear on traceability. We support a traceability system that meets the national traceability performance standards. The current systems that we have in place are working in some states better than others. So we do support mandatory electronic tagging, but that support is contingent on a number of caveats. The first one being that there is a guaranteed agreement by states to roll out the business rules consistently across the country. We can't have one state doing one thing and another state implementing the rules in a different manner, because that doesn't help national traceability. We also want to see the establishment of a database for FMD susceptible species, so that, in an incursion, all of those susceptible animals can be quickly traced. And thirdly, and really importantly for growers, is that we need to see an equitable cost-sharing arrangement between both industry and government, and also including those supply chain partners. Because at the end of the day, what we know happens is that if a supply chain partner receives increased costs, 9 times out of 10 they're going to pass that on to the producer. So we need to see that equitable distribution of funding commitments, and not just for the establishment of the system, but for the maintenance of the system as well.
Yeah, really important point, Joe. We'll finish on that one. Thank you so much for being available for us today on Flow FM. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Ricky. Thanks for your time.